After 4 years in the game, Vibes Up Radio HD is still on top. All the way up. All the way up. So this summer, take us with you.
What's the topic?
Calling us up at 718-342-0511
What's the topic?
or downloading our free app.
There's a guest I called it in there, but he was talking about mental health. You didn't see it on Facebook?
No, somebody just texted me and asked me this one.
Okay. It's going to be about mental health. It's going to be about, they're going to be sharing their stories about addiction. And one of them is a Christian. So don't go read it. I actually missed
Talk Time with Sharmin will air each and every Monday from 6 to 9 p.m. EST, right here on www.vibesupradio.hd.com. Sharmin is a passionate and dedicated motivational speaker and coach who travels across the United States motivating, empowering, and coaching individuals to reach their potential. Sharmin brings life experience and education to her craft. She is currently working on her dissertation to complete her PhD in general psychology. So, do you need help getting to the next level, fulfilling your dreams or achieving your goals? Tune in and meet Sharmin as she infuses the airwaves with knowledge and encouragement. Sharmin will discuss topics that are taboo and help us remove the masks that we wear to hide our experiences and truth. You can share your views and suggest topics of interest for Talk Time with Sharmin every Monday on www.vibesupradio.hd.com. Don't forget to download our free app on all your devices. Also, feel free to join in on the conversation by calling us up at 718-342-0510. Log on to www.vibesupradio.hd.com and listen live and share your thoughts on the discussion weekly. You are encouraged to use the chat box to add your input to the conversation. Welcome, Sharmin. Talk Time with Sharmin.
This song is basically to all women walking in those relationships figure it out like I was used and abused for so long. That's the reason I wrote this song to let your woman know. Being abused is not acceptable. It makes you very uncomfortable. Yeah. He controls every move you make. How that's not here to tell somebody who are in an abusive relationship is unacceptable. No one deserves to be slapped, kicked, tell what to do. Girlfriend, you can do that all by yourself. You don't need him. Pray to God and ask him to give you strength to let go and never look back. Look in the mirror, you are beautiful. Alright?
Love was all you need. You were the first, so was I. We made love and then you cried. Remember when?
Must say good evening, good evening.
Round and round and walk the walk. Gave our heart.
Must say good evening, good evening.
Work hard. I learned life's curves. There was joy, there was hurt.
Welcome to Talk Time with Miss Sharmin Praise. Good afternoon, Miss Sharmin.
Good afternoon, DJ Andrew. Wow, my mic sounds well. Good afternoon. How are you?
I am blessing yourself.
I'm great. Good evening, listeners. Good evening. Welcome to Talk Time with Sharmin. I'm your host, Sharmin Prince, and tonight we have an interesting show for you. I don't have a topic because at 6:30 we have our first guest, and her name is Jody Prowse. And I don't want to give away everything, but I know that you guys would be her story. Jody's gonna share her story. She is an outspoken advocate to eliminate the shame and stigma surrounding addiction and mental illness. Jody's also an author, and she actually wrote a memoir which she will share with us tonight. And her memoir is The Sun Is Gone. And she has a few other books like A Sister Lost in Secrets, Shame, Addiction, and How I Broke Free. And tonight we will be privileged to hear how Jody broke free. And then at 7:30 we have Nancy Vergan, and Nancy will be talking to us about depression and suicide. And she honestly discussed mental illness and how with effective support and when you confront the stigma, you can actually face the misunderstanding of depression and suicide head on. So Nancy's a survivor. Both of these women are survivors of whatever they're going to talk about, and they're using their experiences to be leaders and help others. So I am excited tonight to hear the stories of these two women and how they have been able to triumph out of where they were, and what motivated them to use their life experiences to propel into the direction or into the avenues that they're in. So I want to thank you. I want you to share, press the share button. You know, someone said to me, you don't encourage people to share the video. So I'm encouraging you tonight to share the video, call someone, invite someone. We're all affected by mental health or mental illness in some way or the other. The stigma, the shame that accompanies mental illness are two of the factors that prevent a lot of people, especially in our communities. That's the hindrance that prevents them, or the thing that prevents them from seeking help. So tonight I hope and I pray that some of the myths surrounding the shame, some of the myths surrounding the stigma would be eliminated, and we would be able to walk away with something from these two women that will be calling in tonight. In 4 minutes, Jody would be on the phone. So DJ Andrew, thank you again for being there for myself and our listeners.
You're welcome, Ms. Sharmin, anytime.
Thank you.
Oh, that mean a lot to some girls, but all I have is love. Darling, all I have is love. Now they will take you places that you wanna go, and show you things that you've never seen before, but all I have is love. Darling, all I have is love. Oh, yeah. Na 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 na. Maybe I'm poor, but it's you I really adore. If you don't accept it, then you can walk straight out the door. But all I have is love. Darling, all I have is love. Now some other man will buy you diamonds and pearls. Those are the things that mean a lot to some girls, but all I have is love. Darling, all I have is love. Oh, yeah. Na 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 na. Can't help smiling when I look at you. To keep on going crazy is all I can do. I'm so defenseless with you so close. The walls are crumbled on my body and soul. Write your name across town. I want the world to know that I am yours forever. I'll wear it like a shining star.
Welcome to Talk Time with Sharmin.
Hi,
Hi, Jody.
how are you?
I am great. Thank you for calling.
Thank you for asking me.
And we are very excited to have you. And thank you for actually accepting to appear on the show.
Yeah, no problem. No, I'm thrilled.
So, on the phone, listeners, viewers, because we are live on Facebook, Jody, I have Jody Proust. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did, that's perfect.
Okay. We have Jody Proust. Jody Proust, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure, you know what I always like to start by saying is, you know, I am just a daughter and a sister and a wife and a mother and a friend and a neighbor. But, you know, I've been hiding painful secrets most of my life, and that's that I'm also a daughter, a granddaughter, stepdaughter, cousin, niece, aunt to alcoholics. And so it really impacted everything about my life. And, you know, nothing affected me more than when my younger brother also became an alcoholic. So, but my story, I think, is so much more than just that. It really is, you know, we have so many things to deal with in this thing called life, and, you know, finding our way through that.
So, Jody, did I hear you correctly that you had problems in the past with alcohol?
Yeah. Now, I specifically haven't. I have not had a drink. I struggled to give up alcohol. My husband and I had an incident where he had some issues with alcohol, and that was 25 years ago. And we right away went and got all the help we needed. And so he decided back then to give up alcohol. and to support him, I did the same. I think with us, you know, we wanted to raise our children a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us came we're both adult children of alcoholics, and we saw the effects of all that, and so my husband and I made a conscious decision to give up alcohol in our own home to raise our sons. But having said that, when it became my brother, it very much became a part of our family.
How was it growing up, being in a household with alcoholic parents?
Sorry, Sharmin, I can't hear you very well. Can you repeat that?
How was it being in a home with alcohol, being raised by alcoholic parents?
Yeah, some of our, you know, my earliest memories are, you know, I'm the oldest child, and my brother was 4 years younger. And I will have to say, my mother got us out of that environment when I was 9 years old. But before that, I mean, all I remembered, or some of really all my memories were of fighting and chaos and, you know, having to flee the home in the middle of the night. And all these things stayed with me, you know, forever. But because I think I was old enough to understand what was going on, I always knew it was alcohol. I always knew I wanted to have a different life. But I think it impacted my brother a lot differently. He was so small, and he didn't remember, and you know, so there's some lasting effects from that.
What are some of the effects that had on you?
Well, me, and you know, the thing is, I'm 48 years old. It really has taken me, believe it or not, up until about the last 2 years to really stand back from the story and dissect it all. And, you know, I thought, okay, you know, it's my brother that is sick. It's my brother that needs help. I think it's the mistake that most families make. They zoom in on the one that is addicted instead of really looking at everybody in the family, and that there really are roles that are played. And if you come from an alcoholic background, there's roles that kind of start when we're little children. So for me, I took on a lot of the responsibilities of the family. My brother became very, very dependent on me. You know, I would be the one that would shelter him and try to make him feel okay when these things were happening. And so, you know, for me, I just felt this absolute sense of responsibility for my family. And, you know, as we all know, as we go through life, we do become adults, and we are entitled to have a life of our own, to go off and get married and have children. And really, ultimately, that is our responsibility.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Yeah. You know, I say it is a tough road, and my heart goes out to any family that is struggling, because you should never have to choose between those two family groups. You know, your siblings and your parents versus your spouse and your children. And, you know, it is a very, very complicated world, you know, alcohol, drug addiction, and mental illness even. But I really think that all the characters need help.
Jody, you said that, and I'm actually summarizing what you said, that, or what I understood from something you said, that.
Yeah, just a little bit more. I can't hear you.
Yeah, that.
Okay.
Okay, you hearing me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, you said that alcoholism or addiction affects the entire family. Is that correct?
The entire family.
But there are some families who thinks that distancing themselves from the person, the addict, the active user, is the best course of action. What would you say to that family or family members that might be listening?
Yeah. Well, again, my first thing is to say my heart goes out to every single person that is going through this. I'm always quick to point out, you know, I can tell our story and what has happened, but for me, I always say, if it's happening in your family, go talk to someone that specializes in addiction, and listen to what they are telling you to do. Because that is what happens so often, is people do what they think is best, and the reality is, when you sort through all this at the end, we don't know. You know, we send our loved ones for help, or we send them to a treatment center, a rehab center, or to therapy, but we don't know what we're doing either. And the thing is, it's somebody's life. You know, all of our stories are different, but we're all told the same thing. If our loved one doesn't get help, they will die. And that's where I think you should get your strength, knowing that your loved one can die. And if you are open and strong enough to actually sit with someone and hear what they have to say, that perhaps, you know, I'm not saying that there isn't some beautifully healthy families out there whose loved one becomes addicted. But there is a tremendous amount of people out there who their families aren't a healthy unit. And to get help and do what the professionals say. I will tell you, my brother, after his 7th attempt at rehab, I am one of those people that did have to set a healthy boundary for him. But it's not what my heart wanted me to do, but it's what I was told was best for my brother. And that doesn't mean you're abandoning them or giving up on them, but you do have to do what you're told to do.
And how, you said that you had to set a healthy boundary for your brother.
Yeah.
How did that affect you emotionally?
You know, for me, I think it was even harder because, first and foremost, I allowed my own, you know, I just said, I tried so hard to give my children a different life, and then yet I threw my children right in the middle of severe addiction and allowed them for a very long time to see things that weren't healthy for my own children. But your heart gets in the way. We love our loved ones, whether it's your spouse or your parents or your, you know, your brother, as in my case. It was extremely hard to you know, I set the boundary where I wouldn't enable. I would only see him if he was sober, and, you know, that unfortunately meant I wouldn't see him very often. And it was even for me so much harder because of our background. I really did have the relationship with my brother. In my heart, I loved him like he was my own son. I've been protecting him from the effects of alcohol since he was 2 years old. And it stayed with us our whole life. So, but again, I'm very proud that I got help for myself too. I went to counseling and therapy, and I read books. I think that really helped me survive. And, you know, and now to try and turn this into a positive for somebody else.
Can you repeat that, Jody? What were your coping mechanisms, or what helped you? Because I just want to highlight the point. Despite you were not the addict, and you were the sister of someone who was addicted, you sought help.
Yeah. And I think it is such a gift to your addicted loved ones. First, I can't imagine having the weight of the world on your shoulders, that you think all of this is just your fault. And when I got help for myself, I realized these family patterns, that I've been looking after them since my brother and sister both, since I was a little girl, and that I knew that giving money or paying rent, and I knew that was enabling. Definitely didn't do that. But what I learned is the other things I was doing was enabling. I was cleaning his house, and I was doing his laundry, and things that I thought was support. And so it very much helped me to get help for myself. And not everyone is blessed to be able to pay, $100 an hour for a therapy session, or they don't have benefits. The internet has tools, and you can order books. And, I ordered books on codependency and really on toxic family relationships and roles in families. But I very much turned it that it wasn't just my brother's problem, that, some of these things had been going on in our family for a very long time.
I have a friend, Jody, and she would not touch alcohol. And she would say to me that alcoholism is in her family. She said, and I do not want to be another statistic of my family by becoming an addict. Because she has seen it there. It's present in generation after generation. But a lot of us don't view it that way.
Yeah. And I'm that girl. And the reality is, you're so right. People don't look at it that way, which is why it continues generation after generation. I said I learned those lessons, and I can't explain why, but when I was 6 years old, all the bad that happened, I just related to alcohol, and so I carried that with me. And some people have said to me, geez, if your grandfather and your father and your stepfather and your uncle and all these people were alcoholics, why didn't your brother know better? Well, when you're raised like that, these are some of the lessons that we're learning. It's as normal to us as anything else is. And you're watching it, and then also when you get to a certain age, you're drinking with these people, and you're having fun. And I always say they become our lessons of right, not our lessons of wrong. And you do not ever know. People are quick to judge and quick to, think they understand. But one thing I will tell you, you do not know if it is you or your loved one that will become addicted. I mean, how many children go off to college, or, we kiss them, they go off to university, and I think almost every single child will try alcohol. And I just think people should be aware.
Wow. Jody, what it is about mental illness and alcoholism, despite what you share, that push you to become an advocate?
Oh, it has pushed me?
Yeah. Why are you an advocate? Why have you become an advocate, and you have this desire to eliminate the stigma and the shame?
Yeah. Well, I'll let everyone know, my brother sadly lost his battle with alcoholism on March 18th of 2012. And I started taking notes. I had written a memoir about our experience. I just thought it was just such a really important story for everyone to know. And I want to turn this into a positive for somebody else. That my brother was, until the very end, and it's so hard. I mean, you do hear, the statistic in the United States is so sad. 1 in 10 seek help because because they're afraid of stigma and being discriminated against. People we love are dying because they're so ashamed to go get help. And yet we're told addiction and mental illness is a disease. So those two things are not adding up for me. You know, we went through, and, you know, I chronicle it in my memoir, but some unbelievable crazy things happened to us, but I was never, ever ashamed of my brother. I do look at it like it's a disease. If I can just have one person that's willing to go get help, I just want to make it a positive and a happy ending for another family.
And where did mental illness fit in this? How did you become so passionate about mental health?
Well, mental health, even when it was the year 2000 when at first I really saw my brother's drinking problem. From 2000 till 2006, that's when he went to 7 rehabs, and I mean, I went with him to constant therapists and help. But what was always missing then, and I'm not blaming the healthcare system because it is 2017 and we know so much more now. We know now that early childhood trauma or sexual abuse can cause anxiety and depression and schizophrenia and more severe mental health issues. But none of that was ever mentioned back then for my brother. So he did always have depression and anxiety, and it was just so focused on the stop drinking, and it would have served him so much better had he went to a treatment center for a co-occurring disorder, which is dealing with alcohol and a mental illness at the same time. And so for me, I really want to bring that to everyone's attention, because it is the puzzle piece that was missing back then for my brother. It was just, it was just stop drinking, stop drinking. Well, when you have mental illness going on, that is also driving your drinking. And so, I just want to make people aware of that.
Okay. Can you tell us about the books you've written and what were your inspirations?
Yeah, well, I've read a whole bunch of Brené Brown books. I've read Not My Child by Dr. Frank Lawless. Now, even though my brother had passed away, it was so important for me, and especially if I'm going to talk to people, I want to keep educating myself. So that book by Dr. Frank Lawless, I just think it's a brilliant book for people with children, and I was blessed that he did a testimonial for my book. He is the chairman of the Dr. Phil Advisory Board. I read In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Dr. Gabor Maté. That's been very important. Codependency No More by Melody Beattie. And Susan Forward's books, which is one is Toxic Parents or Why Mothers Can't Love. So for me, I finally acknowledge that there's just a whole bunch of things going on that I needed help with, right? Codependency and enabling and family roles and trauma. And so I just went to books like that they really, really helped me. And I think the biggest thing with me is I'm open to believing what I'm learning. And I think that's a beautiful thing for people is to find the strength to admit your weaknesses and your flaws and that we're not all perfect. I made some unbelievable mistakes with my brother. But we all make mistakes in this world. And all we can do is learn from them.
How can we overcome the shame and the stigma of addiction and mental health?
I think talking about it You know, my biggest thing is I think to really, really eventually change the world, I think we need to start talking to our children when they're really young. You know, I just did an interview 2 weeks ago, and the interviewer said, was it being hidden from you when you were a child? The truth is you're not hiding it from your children. You're hiding it from the outside world, but your children know what's going on. They do. And, you know, just sit and talk to them and explain to them and have open conversations. And I understand, depending on how old the child is, you can share more or less. But so that it takes away their anxiety and they understand that, you know, if it's the parents, that mommy and daddy love them and all those honest conversations, so that then our children grow up honestly really believing it's a disease. You know, the world, I said before, the world doesn't treat it like it is. I mean, we all know people laugh in the media, and you see it on TV, and you know, addicts aren't treated the same in the hospital as other people that are sick. But I don't think it's treated like a disease in our own family. And I think to really change the world, I think it needs to start there. And not be ashamed of mental illness. You know? I, for one, believe that they are diseases.
I agree, and it's being added to the DSM-5 as a disease, and it's viewed as a disease, but it's going to take some time for society to accept addiction as a disease, because sometimes you speak to people and they think that it's by choice. Oh, that person choose to.
Yeah.
I have a question from someone that is on the Facebook Live. And Janice asks Jody, do you have experience with speaking with people in person that suffer from and come through this disease? I guess other than your brother, do you have any experience? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do I have experience speaking?
Yes, speaking to.
And that's one of the bigger things now that I'm going to try and do even more. I've spoken at recovery events where family members and those in recovery are. I've spoken at breakfast where 400 people came to hear me speak to talk about my story. I love my story in the fact that I think I can talk to addicts in recovery as well as the family member. And so that is what I'm trying to do more and more, is speak and motivate and educate. And although, because that is who you hear from mostly, is the addict in recovery, it's just starting to happen that the family members are speaking. But I do think I have a great message as well for addicts in recovery. We all make mistakes and need forgiveness, and there shouldn't be such a divide of family versus the addict. I think we need to come together.
What would you say to a family that might be listening that has a relative, a loved one that is an addict, but this is their first exposure to addiction?
If I could rewind and take everything back, and we had a 12-year journey from the time, you know, he was really addicted until my brother passed away. If I could rewind and have one gift, it would be that, and not everyone in the family, but the core characters in the family, if that's what we're going to call them. Mm-hmm. The people that are closest to the addict, and so whether that be siblings and the mom and dad, or the spouse, or to all sit together in a room at a professional that specializes, I say, not only in addiction, but in family roles. And you all be willing to talk about your role and do exactly what they say. And you know, I say I wouldn't follow my heart. Our heart gets in the way. Love gets in the way. Now that's our motivator, right? Love is our motivator, but it's our listening to what the professionals say, listening to our head. And, you know, for me, it may have all ended the same way with my brother, but we will never know that. And, you know, we were all, our family was all lost.
Of seeking help for addiction and mental health.
Yeah, the shame is the biggest. Well, I guess I won't say it's the biggest barrier. We have to live in the world as how it is. I mean, there is a barrier to being able to afford treatment and to get our loved ones treatment and get them help. And all we can do is work towards change for that. But when you do hear the statistic of 90% of people don't go for help because, you know, people, their friends will judge them, their neighbors, their co-workers, and even their own family. You know, my memoir has been out for 2 months now, and I have family members phoning me saying, you know, we had no idea. I mean, isn't that the point? That, you know, if my brother had cancer, everyone would have known. And everyone would have known how serious it was and, you know, that he was dying. And so just that in itself, again, be talking. And, you know, I say, you look at obituaries that say died suddenly, right? For anyone, if someone commits suicide or drug addiction or alcohol addiction. And that just shows you the power that people are just trying to keep this secret because there is a judgment and a stigma attached.
Jody, how did you get over the stigma and the judgment attached?
You know, I'm very proud to say I never had it. And so I think that's why my voice is so loud and I'm so able to stand up. I have to say, I have anxiety. I mean, I came from, you know, an adult child of an alcoholic. I really force myself to work outside my comfort zone. When I do interviews or I stand up in front of people, I have never felt shame or stigma. And so I've always had a very big voice around it. And I think that's too part of my feeling responsible for my brother, that I think during this journey, he was so soft-spoken and quiet and shy, and I think I was his voice for so long, you know, from childhood, that I just think that is what, you know, kind of made me who I am in my adult life, and you know, I'm saying, I think, what he never had the courage to say.
What do you think are some of the factors that...
Sorry, I lost it. Speak again?
What are some of the factors that helped you to overcome the stigma and the shame? Or not to have it, because that's what you said. You never had it. What are some of the factors?
Well, you know, and I think a lot of it is how you grow up. Like I became the caregiver to my siblings and a lot of the family responsibilities. So I became like the strong one and the loud one, and I was able to always say whatever I felt to anyone. So I became very confident. So those are things that I think I learned from just because of the role and how we grew up. And so, and for other people, not everyone is ever, and that is okay, is ever going to be able to tell their story. And I think it's important to tell people that is totally okay. You do not all have to share your story, but if you can at least share it with someone in your inner circle, like find the courage to at least do that. Because otherwise you do feel so alone. And I can't imagine going through this journey. Just, I think to my brother, and it just makes me so sad that he was just so ashamed. And it goes back to the same thing. By law, it is a disease. So why are we so ashamed?
I guess because of the ignorance from the past, and also a lot of people were exposed to mental illness via Hollywood, and Hollywood has never promoted mental illness as a disease other than The Beautiful Mind.
Yeah. Isn't that so true? And I say sometimes when you watch on TV and Jimmy Fallon is making fun and ridiculing Rob Ford, who was going through his alcoholism, and there's people at home watching, and there's an audience laughing, and you have to step back and say, if he was making fun of somebody dying of Alzheimer's, would that be okay? And, of course, it's a big, loud no, but that is the reality of the world we live in. And that's what I hope to do. I'm just a sister. That's too much responsibility on my shoulders. If I can just help some people see it in a different way, no one would actively choose this life. No one. Whether it's again, our children that start drinking innocently in college, or whether it's the mom that gets prescribed pills for a bad back. There are all sorts of things that happen that I hope people can be more open-minded to, and just have some empathy and compassion for them and the family.
Jody, do you think it's important for us to expose our children to the family history about addiction, just as we do we'll tell our children, avoid these foods because it's hereditary, or high blood pressure, cholesterol, and diabetes runs in the family. So avoid this. Do you think we should do the same with mental health and addiction?
Yeah, I love that you asked that, because I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm an advocate for, is the children know anyway. And when you don't talk to them, all you're allowing, my brother was 2 years old, I was 6 years old, and you're allowing us to interpret and analyze and figure this out. And so you're not hiding it anyway. I think it is so important to talk to them. And again, knowing you can only share, for how old the child is as they grow up. But I'll tell you, my younger niece was 6 years old when my brother passed away. I have told her that her Uncle Brett died of alcoholism, and I've shared a little bit more every year. She is 11 years old now. She just said to me 3 weeks ago, we were in our kitchen, we weren't talking about anything, and she said to me, "Auntie, can girls grow up and become alcoholics?" And so those, these little children are interpreting everything they see, whether you say it or not. They're interpreting their conversations. And I do want her to know it runs in our family, just like cancer runs in our family. And then she can be aware and make maybe some different choices. And so it doesn't continue to the next generation.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Because I asked that question because I'm sure we have listeners, and because of the shame and taboo of both mental illness and addiction, this is not a discussion that is held at the dinner table.
Yeah.
This is not a discussion that is held with our children even before they enter high school.
I absolutely agree. And I was that little girl once. And I am telling everyone out there, the little kids are figuring it out, but they're figuring out not the good lessons. And the thing is, whoever's talking to them, let's assume it's the parents have to give up the shame as well, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want, I think what motivates us not to say anything a lot of the times is we think if we say something, we're saying something mean about grandpa, or we're saying something mean about our uncle, or mean about daddy. No, they are sick. And that is how it should be talked about, right? Once again, an illness, and explain what is going on. And then the beautiful thing, again for me being that child one, children are resilient. Children love you. They forgive the mistakes and things that happen. And I just think it's an absolute gift to your children to speak openly and honestly.
Jody, earlier in our conversation, you touched on childhood trauma and sexual abuse.
Yeah.
How does that correlate with addiction and mental illness?
Well, that's something that, there's been a few people that have really opened my eyes to that. I didn't know it during my brother's journey, but Dr. Gabor Mate, he's just a renowned doctor in Canada. In his statistics, he believes severe addicts. Now these are severe. This isn't. They have all had some form of childhood trauma and or sexual abuse, and that is what needs to be focused on, so that the loved one will eventually be able to, be in recovery and get over their addiction. But that's part of the things that I didn't understand back then. When I went to my brother's apartment after he passed away, when I had to pack up his belongings, and there was a book there in the realm of Hungry Ghosts from Gabor Mate, and so it was like it was a gift from my brother. I read it, and that's where I learned so much about trauma. There's people like, there's a movie called Playing with Fire with Theo Fleury, and his life through addiction, and he didn't ever succeed or get the help he needed until he admitted he was sexually abused as a child. And it goes back to these secrets that people are hiding. And, as we talk about, people are ashamed for mental illness and they're ashamed for addiction. My gosh, the people that will not come forward and say they were sexually abused because of shame. It's so incredibly sad.
They will not come forward and say that they were sexually abused, but they exhibit a lot of signs and behaviors that actually points in that direction.
Yes, exactly. And with us, I mean, like I said to you, it was 2006 for his last attempt at rehab. We've progressed in our knowledge by 11 years. And so that's where I want to keep educating myself and learning, and so that I can help others. Because you're absolutely right. There are signs, and you know, had we known things like that back then, that it wasn't just drinking, that he needed help for mental health issues.
But the field of mental illness, or the field of addiction, now with all of the studies that has been done, it's indicated that most addicts self-medicate.
Yeah.
And they're addicted to whatever substance because of their pain, because of childhood trauma.
Because of their pain and their trauma.
Yeah.
And it seems absolutely crazy to me that we could have done, 7 rehab attempts and counseling and therapy and all of this, and that little puzzle piece wasn't quite there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say is I'm not blaming the healthcare system, because therapists and counselors and rehab, they can only help when you're also participating. I mean, that's a big puzzle piece too, right? The not only the family, but the one addicted. They have to be honest and sort through and deal with that pain. I mean, we can help, we can support, we can do all the things we're supposed to do, but they need to find, that's why it's so important to find the courage to tell their truth.
Jody, you just pointed out something that is so vital, and I'd like you to elaborate and repeat that. The importance of telling your truth, and not being ashamed of an experience.
Yeah. And that's it. None of us can change our story, right? It's the story we have. And to find the courage to tell your truth. And when I say your truth, it's because, if you were talking to my sister, the truth to her would be slightly different. She's lived a different experience, right? But if you're really going to get help, it has to be your truth. And especially for me, I may have had to go through therapy, and I had to live through my regrets that I allowed my children to see, or the loss of my brother. But at the end of the day, I was never going to die. And for the person that is addicted, to find the courage to tell their truth. And if you can't do it out loud, do it to someone close to you, or do it to a counselor or a therapist. And someone like me to tell them how loved they are. I mean, we went through an excruciating journey with my brother who was addicted. And I would give absolutely anything if he had had the courage just to tell his truth and live the pain. And he was here today.
Jody, we may have listeners that suffer childhood trauma. I mean, this is the mantra on this show.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's a broken record about the importance of seeking help for childhood trauma or child sexual abuse. However, there are some survivors or some victims who are now adults, and because life is good for them, they don't see the need to seek help.
And I think going to that is a brilliant thing you just said, and I couldn't agree more. Because I'm the 6-year-old that remembers. And my brother was the 2-year-old that couldn't remember any of it. And so that is the complicated factor. He and also, during his journey for health, didn't realize how much that this trauma really could have played into his addiction, because he didn't go to therapy and say this happened and this happened. He didn't remember it. But what I really think now, like learning and understanding more about it, I think he felt the effects.
Yes.
He remembered being scared. He remembered being attached to me. And it transitioned to things like, he had had night terrors as a little child, and just some of the signs that we missed because you didn't know anything about trauma then, right?
Yeah.
The night terrors and the anxiety and the feeling lost and depressed. And of course, alcohol takes that away. But it only takes it away for a while. And so to talk about these things, and that's where the family comes in. If we had ever been in a room as a family and a therapist asked, did anything traumatic ever happen to you as children? I would have been the only one to speak up. And so it would have saved a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it would have got my brother a lot of help instead of a therapist trying to, pull these things out of him because he didn't really remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And that's where the whole family, if they're brave enough, And I think the other thing about childhood I'd like to tell everyone is you have a right to have your own feelings about your childhood. You can't let someone else tell you what your experience was like. And what I mean by that is your parents or your other siblings, we're all individuals and we feel things differently. And some things affect each other differently. And that is okay.
Thank you so much, Jody. Jody, can you tell us where we can find your books?
I can. So it's called The Sun Is Gone, A Sister Lost in Secrets, Shame, and Addiction, and How I Broke Free. And you can get it on Amazon or on my website, jodyprouse.com.
Can you repeat that for us?
Yeah. So The Sun Is Gone, A Sister Lost in Secrets, Shame, and Addiction, and How I Broke Free. And you get it at Amazon or at jodyprouse.com. So it's JODEEPROUSE.com.
Thank you so much, Jody. Jody, what would you like to leave with our listeners tonight?
I think I'd just like to tell anyone that is going through this journey, or for anyone that has lost someone that they love, that you aren't alone. We all feel lost and tired and broken, and you really can turn this into a happy ending. And I want to leave by saying, I never wrote my stories for monetary gain, so 50% of all my author profits are going to be donated to addiction and mental illness programs. And, I wish my brother was here, but he isn't, and so that'll be on his behalf.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and really, just a big hug to who's ever listening. It's a small thing, and sometimes that's all we need. We just need a hug.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Of course. Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye.
That was Jody Prowse. In a few minutes, we'll be speaking to Nancy Verden. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Guys, we have the ability that when our guests are on the show, you can call in and we can put them on hold and you can ask questions. The number here is 718-342-0510. Again, 718-342-0510. Wow. You see, a lot of times, I said this before, that the things that occur in early childhood and in childhood period affects us. And you heard Jody's story. She remembered. Her brother didn't remember, and he became an addict and lost his life in 2012 from the addiction. So, DJ Andrew, can you serenade us?
Everybody needs a little time away. I heard her say from each other. The lovers need a holiday. Far away from each other. Oh, yeah. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry. I just want you to stay. After all that we've been through, I will make it up to you. I promise you, baby. After all that's been said and done, you're just a part of me. I can't let go. She told him you forget in time. As the years went slowly by, she still prayed upon his mind. He kept her picture on his wall. Yeah, when it's crazy now and then, he still loved her through it all, hoping she'd come back again. And some letters nice dated 1962. He had on the line in red. Yes, every single I was used. I went to see him just today. Oh, but I didn't see no tears. Oh, no. Or just up to go away. First time I seen him smiling years. Yeah, he's not loving her today. They placed a wreath upon his door, and soon they'll carry him away. He's not loving her today. Yeah. You know, she came to see him.
Talk Time with Sharmin.
Hi, it's Nancy.
Hi Nancy, how are you?
I'm doing well.
So Nancy, welcome to Talk Time with Sharmin. Thank you for being a guest on our show.
Oh, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
I know that you're going to be sharing a wealth of experience and information with us tonight, and we're actually excited and to hear from you. So, can you introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Sure. Well, probably the baseline that people want to know is, what story do I have to tell? What is my message? And quite simply, it is because I've struggled with major depression most of my life, that I have built hope out of that story, and that's the hope that I want to share. So I'm a middle-aged lady. I don't mind telling you my age. I'm 56, and I've got 2 grown sons, and I live in Cleveland, Ohio. And I've written 3 books that talk about major depression in some ways, and also a third one, actually the first 2 do that, and the third one talks about what Bible characters may have been thinking during key moments of their life. But I started Always to Fight Ministries a while back, and that is simply the opportunity for me to go tell my story. I do it in public, I do it on radio, I do it through writing, and that sort of thing.
I'm sorry, I was actually jotting some information. You said your story that you'll be telling us tonight is about your experience with major depression.
Yes.
So Nancy, how old were you when you were diagnosed with major depression?
Actually, the first time somebody told me that was my diagnosis was, I was 49. And, however, I've had incidences in the past where I've been told you have depression, or, you have, whatever, you're struggling somehow, but I haven't had anybody who's actually used that phrase, that you have major depression. And so I've learned a lot about it since then, and discovered that is what I've been dealing with most of my life. But I didn't receive, I guess I didn't receive medication for it until I was 44 years old.
Wow. What were some of your signs?
Well, for me personally, one of the first signs that I might be going downhill mood-wise, and that this disease is starting to run its course, is a sense of, I don't care. I don't care about what happens. I don't care what happens to me. One of the first things to go will be self-care. So, that's a symptom I actually look out for, because if I'm suddenly not eating as I should, or I'm not eating well, or I'm not sleeping, I'm staying up all night or whatever, that's a sign for me personally that my thinking is not on track in the healthiest way. And one of the other symptoms or signs, you might say, of depression for me is the lack of energy. Such a loss of joy. Like, there's no joy to be found, and nothing that I normally care about matters to me anymore. So those are some symptoms that I experienced.
And were these symptoms that you experienced most of your life?
Yes, off and on. I've had several episodes that I can look back to and say, oh yeah, that's what that was. But I've had periods in my life where I was not majorly depressed either. And during those periods, I experienced more hope, more joy, more of an excitement about life, and just general happiness, more of that. But when an episode is coming on, and throughout an episode, that kind of turns upside down,
I would say the very first episode that I could actually point to and say that was an episode, I was 16.
You were an adolescent, 15.
Yes.
Interesting. At 15, when you read that episode that you remembered, Nancy, what was that like? What did you experience?
Well, for me, it was an obsession with death. I couldn't get it out of my mind. I was curious about it. I wanted to research it. And this was before the internet, okay? I already told you how old I am. So this was before the internet. So I was just running around in the library trying to get every book I could on the subject. I was writing about it. I was writing essays and poetry, and I might have been doing some drawings. I don't remember for sure. And I remember getting a speech on it in speech class. I remember also my mom saying to me, "Why are you focusing so much on death?" And for me, I just responded, "I'm curious about it." However, I've learned since then that that is one of the signs that we can look for when a person is tending towards very serious depressive thoughts, more severe thoughts, even suicidal type thoughts, is when they are talking about death a lot, or you can see it in their work, like in their music or their art or their writings and that sort of thing. So I look back at that and I go, that was me having some really dark thoughts back then. But I didn't realize that had a name, you know? I didn't know that was actually something.
And after, that was your first episode at age 15. And
that I remember.
That you remembered. And after that, do you remember how many years later or how soon after that you remembered another episode?
Yeah, there was a really big one when I was 19. Let me preface this with untreated depression tends to get worse and grows more often over time. So it's really no surprise then that because there was no treatment at all when I was 16, that at 19 it would come back stronger. So I had a major depressive episode when I was 19 that got me into some dark spots, but I still was not suicidal. What I remember at the age of 19 was thinking how worthless I am and that my life should just be thrown away. I don't remember having suicidal thoughts, direct suicidal thoughts, but I was thinking along the lines of my life being worthless. Well, the next one came along when I was 26. So how many years is that? I guess that's 7 years later. And that was at a time that is the first time that I reached out for help and saw a counselor. But I was seeing him because of my marriage, not because of depression. But he is the first one that told me, "You are depressed." He didn't say, "You have maybe depression." He said, "You are depressed." So I interpreted that as, "Oh, I'm having a bad day." Well, it was very clear that I wasn't just having a bad day when it turned very suicidal and dark a few months after that. And, but I still did not receive medication until I was 44 years old. And at that time, at 44, is the first time I was told to go to the hospital. And so I went to the hospital and they started giving me some medication. And I received some therapy, talk therapy, but not much. And it didn't really change me at all. It didn't really grow me at all. Because the meds by themselves don't change you. They're not happy pills. They don't. You pop a pill and you're happy. No, that's not the way it works. You take these medications and hopefully they put your brain in a position where it can start to function physically, normally, that everything starts to work as the organ should work. and then you can start to think reasonably and make your own decisions. But I was given the medication, but not the therapy. So I guess what I'm saying is, I got the medication, it helped my mood a little bit, but it didn't change how I think. So it didn't change my life at all.
Am I hearing you say that with the psychotropic medication, there must be psychotherapy?
Excuse me, I don't know about every case because I'm not a doctor, but I believe that the best combination, the combination that scientists have found works most often, or at least very often, is the combination of medication and talk therapy, yes.
And how, after your exposure to talk therapy, how did that change your life with the medication and talk therapy?
I can't speak to talk therapy changing me any prior to the age of 49 because I didn't know what to look for, and I settled for less than what I needed prior.
Mm-hmm.
So once I was on medication and seeing therapists that knew how to help me best, then I started to grow as a person. So I'll give you one example for your audience here. One example is, I didn't know that it was not selfish to get my own needs met. I thought my whole purpose in life was to serve other people. So for me, that meant doing whatever it is that I thought people wanted me to do, whether I wanted to do it or not. And it also involved a lot of guilt when I didn't do what I thought other people wanted me to do. So to learn through therapy that it's not selfish and that in fact it is my responsibility to get my needs met was news. Oh my goodness, I remember sitting straight up in my chair. I was like, really? It's not selfish? I didn't understand that, and it took a while for me to grasp it, but that completely changed my life because I went from not knowing or caring about Nancy to, okay, I'm going to take these steps to know and care about Nancy. And then I turn around and become a better friend, a better parent, a closer relationship with God, and things change because I had things backwards when in fact, when we do indeed take care of our needs and make sure they're met, we are healthier people. So that's just one example for you of how therapy took me from where meds could never take me. You know, meds could say, okay, we're going to calm down the brain a little bit and we're going to give it a chance to function normally, but meds can't change how you think. So that's where talk therapy came in and helped me to realize lessons, life lessons, one after the other after the other.
When I read your bio, I saw something about suicide. What's your knowledge or experience with suicide?
Well, I came close to attempting suicide a few times over my life, but I actually did attempt suicide in 2011. That was when I was 49 years old. And I had come to the point where I had no understanding of hope. I didn't see it. I didn't think it belonged to me. I thought that if there was any hope, it wasn't mine to keep, etc. As someone who has been a practicing Christian most of her life, I've always been in one kind of ministry or another. So for me to get to a point where I didn't think God could even use me, that's an important little note to make because depression changes your thinking. Depression changes how you perceive the world around you and how you perceive yourself. So I'm a very capable person who believed I was incapable. I'm a person who can do things that matter in this world, who had come to the point where I didn't believe I could do anything that matters in this world. I'm a loved person by my son, and I got to the point where I didn't think I mattered to them. That's depression. That's major depression. We're not talking about the blues here. We're talking about a change in the thinking, the change in the rationality, and that's why it's a disease that has to be treated as a sickness. So it was, the suicide attempt for me was, since I ended up in the hospital, I had this shock, I guess you could call it, that I was still alive, because I didn't think I would be. And from that point on, I was challenged by people to really take a second look at this. You know, what is your depression telling you? Okay, this. Then what is the evidence actually telling you? Okay, this. So depression was telling me I was worthless and had nothing to offer the world. The evidence is that I've got a life of offering things to the world, and I can again. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So suicide was my answer, I thought, at the time, but I was so wrong. And that's one of the messages I want to shout to the world. That when you get to the point where you think there's nothing left and there's no other reason to hang on, remember that you're wrong. that is a lie that is coming from somewhere else. That is not the truth. It feels like the truth, but it's not the truth. I kind of compare it to coming to a dead-end street, where you can turn to the right or to the left, but you think you can't go forward. Mm-hmm. But if you get past the first few trees, you know, maybe there's a path on the other side, kind of thing. So it's like we come to a blind spot, you know. We can't see anything. We're thinking our life has come to an end, and we need to just end it. But other people sometimes support us and give us enough strength to take a few more steps, and we look beyond the blind spot. We go, oh, I see, there is actually more out there for me. So it's important to remember that. It's important for anybody who's feeling suicidal or even depressed to get into your life those people who get it and who can help you. Probably professionals, but maybe other people in a support group or whatever. But find those people who understand where you are and know how to get out. They can help you. You don't have to stay there.
Nancy, you said you have been in church all your life. Did I hear you correctly?
In church all my life?
In church.
Church, yes. I'm sorry, yes, church.
So, I don't know what denomination you're a part of, but I can speak for some denominations who does not promote mental health.
Right.
And so if they would think it's because of a demonic influence, you're depressed. Have you ever encountered that? Were you faced with that?
Oh, I run into that question quite often. My answer is, I'm not God. So I can't tell you what is causing your problems. I can tell you what caused mine. And that is that depression is a disease. It's hard for people to get their minds wrapped around that sometimes, because we tend to think of depression as an attitude. And it's not just an attitude. It's not a bad attitude. It's something that is actually tricking our brains. It's something that our brain is misfiring a little bit there. So when we can get that medicinally fixed, then we can start making choices that are rational. So if you think about it, if something is demonically influenced, how is the medicine going to help? It's not. So if you've got someone who's struggling with depression, and they start to take medicine, and they start to feel better, we need to take a step back and go, wait a minute. How can medicine take care of a demonic influence? It doesn't have the power to do that. Another thing to consider too is that once the medicine is working and somebody's mind is a little more rational and they can start making choices, they can start talking more reasonably about spiritual issues. When depression had me totally confused, I tell people depression messed with my thinking, but it did not mess with my faith. Because the whole time that I was majorly depressed, even fearing the suicide attempt, I knew who my Lord and Savior was, and I knew who God was. I knew I was loved by them dearly. I knew that God was sovereign. I knew that if He wanted me to live, He could make me live. I knew that if He didn't want me to live, He could take me home. I knew that I was completely surrendered to Him and wanted to obey Him and honor Him. But depression twisted my thoughts, because the brain was not working well. That I was thinking things more along the lines of it would actually be God's will for me to end my life.
Nancy,
I know that's not true.
Nancy?
My thinking was all messed up, but not my faith. I knew who God was. I knew who I wanted to be surrendered to. So people can move in that and say, well, then it was the devil that was telling you to take your life. And it was the devil, not depression, telling you that it was okay. Well, I'm back to I'm not God. I can't tell you everything about everything. But what I can tell you is that I never felt Jesus leave me. He was with me the entire time, and I knew it, and I felt His presence. But at the same time, I was interpreting the value of my life in an incorrect way.
Nancy, can you hold a minute?
Yes.
Let's see. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to... Okay. We were trying to see if we can pick up the caller, because maybe the caller had a question for you.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let's try. Let's see. Hold on. No.
Calls will be answered. Calls will not be answered. Calls will be answered.
Let's see. I guess, I hope I did. Nancy, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess,
Hold on. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, this is Nancy.
Still Nancy.
Oh, Nancy, we were trying to merge the calls, but I guess
It's not going through.
we're not able to.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Nancy, you there?
Yes.
Okay. Caller,
Technical difficulty.
where you can call us back after the interview with Nancy, or if you're online, where you can, if you're live on Facebook, you can actually send your question until we figure out how to maybe merge the calls or put Nancy on hold and take your call. We're not able to figure it out. Yes, Nancy. The question, Nancy, and it's common. Hello?
Yes, I'm right here.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry about that. It's common that if you're a Christian, in some circles, if you're a Christian and you have a mental health, a mental disorder, it's deemed as something demonic. And but here we are today, and we have, we're pre-feed, and we're actually honored to have you share your story with us. And you're a Christian and you have a mental diagnosis.
Yes.
And you sought therapy and you sought medication, and you can safely say that it has helped you one way or the other.
Yes.
But
God,
yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
I'm just going to say that God promises to redeem us. When we are in the middle of great pain, it's hard for us to imagine at all how getting on the other side of it is going to be anything great. I mean, sometimes the pain is so terrible that we think that is the end of everything. Sometimes we think that pain is so terrible that we'll never overcome it. And yet God is the one who reaches down and says, I'm with you in your trouble, and if you love me and you obey me, I will take what is wrong and turn it into good. So when he redeems us, it's kind of like redeeming a coupon. You know, you take it to the store and they give you something in exchange for your little piece of paper. It's the same way with God, that we come to him with all of our mess and our pain and our sin and our trouble, and he exchanges for us for that. I mean, he bought it from us when Jesus died on the cross, and he exchanges it for hope and grace and mercy. In Scripture, there's talk about healing, and there's talk about, learning how to think differently and that sort of thing. But there's no promise in the Scriptures that says he will help you to never suffer. What he promises is that he will be with us in trouble. So he takes what we bring to him, which is a lot less than we wish we could take to him. And he says, I love you so much, and what you have to offer me is wonderful, because all I wanted was you in the first place. And he offers his grace and mercy and forgiveness, and we can just take it. That doesn't necessarily mean that in the next instant, every one of our troubles is going to melt away. What that means is that he is now with us going through that trouble, and we're going to have a hope and a peace that we never did before. And that is what I experienced. Terrible pain, terrible emotional pain. But at the same time, I knew who was standing there with me. So when people say it's just a demonic thing, or it's a spiritual flaw, or even a character flaw, I want to point out that there's a whole lot of physical, spiritual, and mental things going on when somebody has major depression and when there are suicidal thoughts. There's a whole lot going on. It's complex. And it's not something that is necessarily going to just, disappear on prayer.
I am so glad, Nancy, that you have shared that, because there is this myth in Christianity, or I wouldn't say about Christianity, that if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be suffering from, or you shouldn't be diagnosed with a mental disorder or even physical illness or illnesses. Here you are, someone who grew up in church,
yes,
and all along you had the symptoms, and I'm happy that you shared that when I asked you your first memory of having an episode, you said age 15.
Yes.
But you were never clinically diagnosed until 44. Is that correct?
I would say 49, because they were still kind of hesitant at 44, but yes, something like that. In my 40s, we'll put it that way.
So, for almost 3 decades, you went untreated.
Correct.
What sustained you and prevented you from having multiple hospitalizations?
Well, it's hard to say because as any disease, it treats each person differently. For me, I have to say it was prayer. Because I got to the point several times where I didn't care if I lived or died. And some of those got dangerous those times. But I would cry out to God and I would say, I don't know what you want to do with me, but if you think I'm still supposed to be here, then you have to rescue me. And each time He did. What was different on the last time is that I was so thoroughly convinced that I was not worth anything, that I prayed that prayer. I said, God, is it okay for me to do this? But in my mind, I felt, yes, it's okay. But that was not the Holy Spirit. That was not God. That was depression. Some might say it's the devil. I don't care what you want to call it. It was not God. And I went through with the attempt based on the deepest, darkest, most lonely, most hopeless despair I've ever known in my life. So that is the difference. At the other times, I could find reasons to stay alive. Usually it had something to do with my kids or something else I was looking forward to. And this time I had lost all of that. I felt that there was nothing to look forward to. So we can also talk about depression at different levels, different severities. There can be mild, moderate, and severe depression. So although I've had several severe, major depressive episodes, I would have to say that as far as what I felt and thought, the one that brought me to the suicide attempt was the worst.
Okay.
I think often we want to look from the outside at someone who struggles with a mental illness, and we want to measure how sick they are. We want to go, oh yeah, well you're this sick, that's okay. Oh, you're that sick? No, that's not okay. You've got a spiritual problem now. Or we want to say, I've experienced this recovery, so you can experience this recovery. And we're not faithful to the idea that people experience things differently. And with major depression, you can experience it at different levels throughout your life.
Nancy,
I hope that answered your question.
Yes, sure you did. Nancy, how old were you with your last suicide attempt?
Well, the big one, I call it the big one because it was the actual attempt, was in 2011. I was 49.
Wow.
And that's when you received medication. You started medication, or you received.
That's when I started to get therapy that really helped. I did get medication 5 years before that, but without the therapy help. So I didn't have any growth in how I think and what I believe, etc. I just had medication, which, as I said, calmed my mood a little bit, but it didn't change who I am. So the therapy is what really drew me closer to God, closer to being a better, better at thinking clearly.
And that's also when you at age 49. That's when you receive the diagnosis.
Yes, exactly. That's when somebody actually looked at me and said, you have major depression, recurrent severe. And that simply means that it's a chronic situation. Like any other chronic illness, it can have relapses and remissions. It can have different kinds of episodes of different strengths at different times. And there are different ways of managing it.
I have a hard question, Nancy.
Okay.
Do you know what? I mean, it's you remembered your first episode at age 50. Do you know what was do you know what is the underlying factors of the depression?
For me personally, I can give you a lot of guesses, but like I said before, it's complex. So there's the physiological side of it, where some people have more of a weaker or a more sensitivity to this kind of thing happening to them. You might call it a kind
chemical
of like
imbalance.
Pardon?
It's a chemical imbalance.
Yes, but some people are going to be more inclined to have that problem, is what I'm saying, as opposed to others. There's also environment, which plays a role. And I was in a hostile family as I grew up, hostile and violent. And so some of that trauma, some of that undiscussed issues in the family, no one to tell it to, no one to listen, or at least I didn't think so. The few times I tried to reach out to people, they brushed me off as a kid. You know, you're just a kid, you're fine, don't worry about it. And so these things do build up, and the environment definitely plays a part. So if you already have the biological tendency for your brain to kind of misfire in that way, in the emotional realm, and then you have the environment causing trauma and emotional issues, you're not going to have the kind of brain that recovers as easily as someone else's whose brain does not have that problem. So it's kind of like a heart. If you have a heart disease, you're going to run up a flight of steps, and you're going to have an entirely different experience than somebody who doesn't have heart disease. So if you have something like a chemical imbalance in your brain or a tendency to have it, then environmental factors can cause more issues for you than someone who does not have the tendency to get those chemical imbalances. Most of us, Sharmin, most of us will never experience anything more than the blues. We will all have hopeless days and nights. We will all feel terribly lonely. We will have nights that we wish we didn't have to wake up in the morning. But that's not major depression. Major depression is when you can't function. It goes on for weeks, months, even longer. It's got to be treated from a different angle than just, think good thoughts. That's not going to work because we're talking about a physical problem as well. And so, for me at 15, it was just a combination of factors. When you're being basically raised to believe that you're not worth anything, you're going to have a lot of problems thinking that you're worth something. So
you just hit something. You just raised something that is very important. But before I get to that, you highlighted the nature-nurture, or nature versus nurture. Nature where many are born predisposed to mental illness because of the chemical imbalances in the brain. That's biological. And it is triggered by nurture, by the environment, our social environment where we were socialized, the homes that we were socialized in, what we were exposed to, the childhood trauma, and all those things compound what we are already biologically predisposed to.
Yeah.
And some of us are more fortunate than others, that some of us might just get the depression, even though it might be reoccurring major depression. Others are diagnosed with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. So I'm happy that you raised the nature, and it's not nature versus nurture anymore, because both schools of thought see the importance of each other. So it's nature and nurture, because we need both. But you raised something that is so important, and many parents continue to make that mistake today, where they have their children in homes and they make their children feel worthless.
Yes. You've got young children killing themselves. You've got teenagers killing themselves. You've got young adults killing themselves. And the reason for this is, I mean, there can be many reasons for this, but there's a type of mindset that, I don't have any value here. And when a child tells you that they're depressed, chances are they'd have to be an older child to be able to word that. But if you're told by a child that they're depressed, or if you're seeing warning signs of depression, or if the school calls you and says, we believe your child is depressed and needs to have professional help, that's not the time to say, oh, I know better, he just needs or she just needs to shape up. That's not the time to do that. That's the time to go make sure that your child is safe. Go see the professionals, go to find out what it is that your child is dealing with. Talk with your child. Ask them directly what it is you're feeling. It's not weird, and it's not going to suggest to your child that they kill themselves. If you look them in the eye and say, are you thinking about killing yourself? You're not giving them the idea. You're showing them that you care so much about their life that you're willing to ask. So you look at this person, young or old, and you take what you see, you take in what you hear, and without so much mental dismissal, you decide, maybe it's time for me to at least explore this further. Maybe it's time for me to listen to the perspective of other people and to the perspective of my child. And let's see if there's something that needs to be done here.
What would you say to a parent who might be listening, who consistently put down their child and make their child feel worthless?
Well, there's something in that parent that feels worthless, or they wouldn't be doing it. Now, you could be dealing with an abuser, a narcissist, someone who, by all stretch of imagination, does not seem to care about anyone but themselves. That person not only needs help, but they depending on the situation, we have to consider whether that's the relationship we want, whether we want to stay around them. But there's also people who are not necessarily abusers at heart. Like they do genuinely care about you, but they're really lousy at showing it. And those people need to be confronted. They need to be told, this is what is happening. This is what is happening to me when you do that. Now, a child isn't going to be able to do that, depending on the age of the child. They're not going to be able to stand up and say, Mommy, when you call me names, that makes me feel bad. They might, and Mommy needs to listen to that. But chances are there's another perspective, that can be brought in. So if a third party realizes that this is going on, I think we could encourage that parent to consider, hey, let's talk about this, or let's go to a counselor and talk about this, just to find out, what it is that this is doing to your child. I don't know how many parents will be open to that. When I look back, I think neither of my parents would have been open to that. And the reason I say that is that when they were going through their divorce, I was taken into a psychologist's office. He recommended that I go into therapy, and they did not follow through. But that was back in the 70s. Hopefully some minds have been opened since then. But that's what I would say to that parent. If you're putting your child down all the time, You're destroying them. So stop it. But then go find out why you're doing it. Why do you keep falling into that trap? Why do you turn that direction? There are things that you can resolve that will help you to not do that anymore.
Nancy, that was very profound. Thank you so much. That parent, let's say that parent say, but my parents did this to me and I am fine. So, but they continue to perpetuate the same behavior. And they would still verbalize that they're fine despite they experience the same thing. So if they experience that and their children are experiencing it, it is fine. Their children will be fine.
Well, there's a whole lot of denial in that story right there. If someone was raised by parents who constantly put them down, and they escaped with intact self-esteem, motivation, ability to function, etc., which, by the way, I doubt. But if they did, and they turn around and they treat their children the same way, I would say there's something to be explored there. Now, I'm not a doctor or a psychologist, but as a child of parents like that, I would say that there's something to be asked. Am I really looking at the evidence? Am I comparing myself to my children? They have to be exactly like me. Am I doing exactly what my parents did in the exact same circumstances, exactly as I'm doing it to my child? Because any change in the circumstances could make something that you say or do mean an entirely different thing. So I cannot speak to child abuse as someone who's an expert or as a parent who has been abusive. I can only speak as someone who has received abuse. And I can say that I think that when a parent is excusing bad behavior towards their children, they're rationalizing and they're denying. So if anybody cares enough to look a little deeper into what it is they're actually offering to their children, the information is out there. You just have to want it. You have to go find it. There's tons of websites about child abuse and what it is and what it looks like and what to do and not to do. There are tons of therapists and even pastors around who can tell you that what you're doing is or is not helpful to your child. So it's only that rationalization and denial, I think, that you just have to kind of refuse to hear or see anything other than what's in your head in order to excuse treating a child that way.
Whoa. Nancy, thank you. Thank you for that. I couldn't put it better, so thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
What would you like to leave with us tonight?
Well, what I want to leave with every audience is that when we're really down and hurting, we tend to grasp whatever will bring us another minute, whatever will give us a little bit of hope. Sometimes that means one thing, and sometimes it means another, and so on. But there are a lot of us who have untreated depression who are self-medicating. We're doing it with food. We're doing it with alcohol. We're doing it with drugs. We're doing it with TV. We're doing it with pornography. We're doing it with Facebook. We're self-medicating because we haven't had our depression treated. And to those people, to anybody who's listening, it's okay. It's okay to reach out and ask for help. There doesn't have to be shame around it. There doesn't have to be fear. It's okay to reach out. And if you reach out and you find help that isn't helpful for whatever reason, it's okay to turn around and say, I'm going to reach out a different way. Just take care of yourself. There's no reason that you have to suffer in major depression without help. You don't have to be alone. If you live in such a rural little area that you know there's no mental health care within, 100 miles, then it might be worth your time to go online and see what you can find out. Because there are online therapists now, if you are in an area where you know that if you called a hotline or anything in your area, they wouldn't be able to answer you for 2 days or something. I don't know if that actually happens, but, I'm talking out in the real boonies here. Then, again, the internet, or go to the nearest person that you know and tell them that this is, these are the struggles you're having. By all means, if you feel like you're struggling with suicide to the point that you're concerned whether you're going to survive it, if you're plotting and planning and you have intention to commit suicide, but you don't, you go to your ER. I don't care what it is that excuse you want to give yourself. You just get yourself to the nearest emergency room, because they will keep you safe until your brain can start working in a way that you can feel reasonable and you can feel peaceful again. So those are the 2 messages I send out.
But Nancy, I don't want to be associated with a mental diagnosis. I am ashamed. So what do I do?
Well, I don't know what to do except to get over it. I don't mean that harshly. I don't mean that judgmentally. If you have a fear of being associated with mental health diagnosis, some of that fear is genuine, because there's a real stigma out here, and people may really look at you differently, and it's okay to be afraid of that. But when we're talking about your life, and we're talking about your well-being and your ability to function, be the worker you want to be the parent you want to be the child you want to be the pastor or some sort of leader that you want to be, versus having some sort of judgmental stigma, around, then I guess I would say you are more important than all of the little judgments that people want to make. You are more worthy of living than their little rumors are. So go take care of you. Make sure you survive another day. Make sure you can wake up 3 weeks from now and say, I'm still here. And then let all those little rumors and things take care of themselves. I have found that coming out about it and being very open and clear about it has given me much more positives in response than negatives. Negatives exist, but the positives have been more. And when you come out about having some sort of a mental illness, or even if you don't make it really public, but you just tell people in your circles, you will find that other people in your circles have the same problem. There will be people also hiding in your circles who get it and aren't telling anybody. And they'll come out of the woodwork. You're like, wow, I had no idea. I thought I was alone. No, you were never alone. So go take care of yourself. Make sure that you can, be here and fulfill all that purpose that God has for you, whether you see it right now or not.
Whew. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. You have shared so much with our listeners, and I really want to thank you for being honest and being vulnerable. And I'm sure that 1 or 2 of our listeners who might have been on the fence, and because of the stigma, because of the shame surrounding mental illness, they're questioning or don't want to seek help. And I really pray that with your testimony and the information that you've shared, it helped someone and encourage someone to go and seek help.
Yes, I sure hope so. Absolutely.
So thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
And I want to thank you for being our guest, and hope that we can have you as a guest another time.
I'd be more than happy to come back, sure.
Nancy, you have a book, right?
I have 3 books.
Can you
The
share?
first one is titled Called to Live, and that actually covers from the day that I went to the hospital because of the suicide attempt through 1 year. So that book is a real picture of the roller coaster of major depression. And then the second book is called Always the Fight, which is more of a connection of living a life that deals with depression and self-doubt and lack of worth and all of those things under the giant umbrella of God's sovereignty. How do we connect those? How do we make a difference in our own lives? How do we keep moving forward? And the third one is about Bible characters and what they may have been thinking in a key moment of their life. But it is very, very short stories.
And where can we access those books?
Right now, if you go to my website, you're going to be told a couple of different places that you can get them, including directly from me. I am in the process of turning them into ebooks, and they will be available as ebooks within 2 or 3 weeks. Right now, you can get paper copies either from Amazon or me, and we can go from there.
Okay, so they are available on Amazon.
For a while, they will be. The reason I'm turning them into ebooks is because the publisher closed down. So Amazon only has the paperbacks that they have in stock. They cannot get more.
Okay.
So I'm turning them into ebooks so they remain available. But that's going to take me a couple more weeks.
Okay.
In the meantime, Amazon still has some stock.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
DJ Andrew, I'm smiling because there was a reason for me choosing both Jody and Nancy to be interviewed on the same day because of the correlations between their stories. And both of them underscored what I've been saying on this show numerous times. Now it's a broken record about the importance of us seeking help, the importance of us managing, or I wouldn't say managing, getting help for the childhood experiences. You heard Jody spoke about the childhood growing up in a home with alcoholic parents. She remembered, her brother didn't remember, but she avoided the alcoholism, but her brother fell victim and eventually lost his life to the disease. Also, the other common thread that both of them highlighted that ran through both of their interviews is we continue to assign or embrace the shame and the stigma surrounding mental illness and addiction. But we would openly share with someone if we have diabetes, or if we have high blood pressure, or even cancer, or gout, or one of those common diseases, but find it difficult to seek help first for mental illness and to share with anyone that you have a mental diagnosis.
Miss Sharmin?
Yes, DJ Andrew.
I believe people are scared to be labeled as a mental case. That's why they don't talk about it.
Well, hold on. The label comes from statements like that, a mental case. For us, guides, right?
Right.
When you were exposed to mental illness, what were you exposed to? When you hear mental illness, what first comes to mind?
Crazy.
Okay, crazy. The person that is on the street in Guyana or wherever, and you would hear people say, "Oh, she ran off,"
Exactly.
or "He ran off," or you would hear things like they have madness in the family. The family got mad blood.
Absolutely.
So I always say to people that your opinion of things are birthed out of your initial encounter with that thing. So if your initial encounter with that thing is the man or woman with untreated mental illness that was thrown out by the relatives or family, so they're street homeless, and you're seeing the behaviors, that's your idea of mental illness. And even it's going to take education and exposure to erase that first impression of mental illness. Mental illness is just like any other disease. Some of us were born with chemical imbalances, our neurotransmitters that are, if they're supposed to be firing 10 miles an hour, instead of firing 10 miles an hour, some of them are firing 2 or 1 or 0.5. And it's just our biological makeup. That's just how we were made up. So it's the same thing, like, okay, your body's not producing enough insulin. You're a diabetic. Your body is not producing enough dopamine or serotonin. You have a mental diagnosis. What's the difference?
Shortage.
No, but what it's they're both. It's something that is happening or occurring biologically.
Right.
Why is one labeled and you can be stigmatized, but not the other?
Sure.
How many of us are under the sound of my voice? You're having I think no, it wasn't Jody, it was Nancy that said some of the signs for her were she lost interest in her self-care or poor self-care. You don't take care of yourself as you used to anymore. And when you speak to those people, they can give you justifications for why they're not taking care of themselves anymore. The lack of energy. I know some people that every time you speak to them, they are tired. Those are signs of depression. You don't enjoy the things that you once used to. Also, the loss of interest in things that you love. Clear signs. Those are the blaring signs. The inability, either insomnia or too much sleep. Some of us have to drag ourselves out of the bed in the mornings, even after 8 hours of sleep.
You know, you could identify that. Because in the morning, when I used to go to school, I don't want to get out of bed. And now that I'm working, I work overnight. And I have more energy because I identify where my strength is. I can stay up at night, but I can't get up in the morning. And some people, they feel that they need to have this 9-to-5 job or a morning job and then a night job because they want to either live their life or whatever. But once you identify your strength and where you know that you're strong in the night but weak in the morning, a lot of people don't want to understand that. They don't accept that. And that's why some people get up all dreary, like no hope. You know,
instead of no hope, they lack the energy, because some people, as you said, and that's a fact, that some people they're more productive at certain times, and it's very important to identify that and understand that, because it can make so much difference in your life. Your life can be different, because instead of getting up in the morning and you're tired and you're dragging yourself during the day, and then at 5 o'clock, that's when you're up. You're I know someone like that. You have at 4 o'clock, you have this burst of energy. Those people like working a shift job, like 3 to 11, because they're at their peak after 5 or 6 o'clock. So they do themselves and their employers an injustice by having a 9 to 5. But that's so much different than having a mental diagnosis or being unable to get out of bed because of your depression, because of the chemical imbalance. There's some people with chemical imbalances that may be able to make it through life because they weren't exposed to some of the environmental factors that contribute to mental illness, like childhood trauma and all of that. But there's still signs, because like the example I use, instead of 10 miles an hour, they have like 8. So they're able to function. But there's still some abnormality. And we also heard that someone said, let me look. I mean, our viewers are very quiet tonight. Marcel said they suffer with work shift disorder.
It's not true.
But what Nancy said about feeling worthless and hearing that there's still, if you're under the sound of my voice and you're one of those parents who put down your children, who does not make your children feel good about themselves, as Nancy said, because you don't feel good about yourself. And so, because you're not feeling good about yourself and you continue to wear the mask that all is well, while you're destroying your children's life, it's time for you to take the mask off because of the damage that you might be causing, not just to your children. It might be aimed at a child, and you may have 4 children, but this particular child, or 5 children, and this particular child is the one that gets the brunt of your abuse. Don't you think it's affecting the others? You may have other children around that might be your grandchildren, your nieces and your nephews, and they're being exposed to that verbal abuse. It will have an effect on them. So get the help that you need, because it's abnormal for anyone to be verbally abusive to their children. I mean, I have seen that, and I've seen the effects that it have on people. But tonight, if you take nothing away from the program, get the help that you need. There is nothing wrong in getting therapy. What is wrong is, the only thing wrong is you not seeking the help that is available to you so that you can become a better person. That's all. And also, one of the things, I think Jody raised that about childhood trauma and sexual abuse and how it affects the person or the adult. Many people experience trauma during their childhood, but they wouldn't talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. They continue to
Bury.
Not even bury, they continue to be active participants in the masquerade of fakehood and hide all your pain behind the mask. What happens when the mask fall off and leave you exposed? What's going to happen? The number here is 718-342-0510.
Before the break, there was a caller calling. Please call us back, please.
Okay.
Whoever was calling us, please call us back, 718-342-0510. Also, Ms. Sharmin, one good important question. There's a guy in this thing, right? Oh boy, calling back quick, boy.
Calling you live. Welcome to Talk Time with Sharmin.
Blessed Monday evening to you, Queen.
Good evening, Brother Earl.
Good evening, DJ Andrew.
Good evening, Brother Earl.
Well, I guess at that time they have to say bye, Patsy, they tell me to listen to Patsy. But it's too late now because the master, the same master you were trying to keep on, you have to take it off. You can't keep it on no longer. So before I got to call you, I'm taking away the same thing that you said. People, good evening, Rachel, and my apologies. Pastor Bridge, good evening, Rachel, and good evening to my family. Good evening. I'm taking away the said thing. Seek the help that is out there. It's available. Forget the stigma. Stop saying your child is whatever. Stop making excuses. My apologies. I joined in. Miss Julia, I guess you had some great input. I missed your input. But Nancy, if you're still listening, God bless your heart. Thank you for your testimony. What a testimony. Queen Charmin is the reason why this chat, everything is quiet tonight. I said to the boss, what a conversation that the Queen is having. This has got to be quiet. This is touching. This is touching many nerves out there. Folks, this information, I caught this show late tonight, but this information I heard from Nancy, and Queen Charmin has done this before. She's given us this knowledge already. What I got from Nancy, she just made it confirm what Charmin has told us before. Stop the stigma. Stop saying your kids don't need it, your kids don't need that, the resources are there, go get it. You're causing too much harm to the kids. It's not normal for what your mother, your parents done to you. It is not. For them to do that to you, no. It tells me the following, like Nancy said it and Queen Charmin said it, you have a problem. You're hiding something as a parent. Your child should not suffer like that, and that child needs help. Fight up, Rachel. What knowledge on about it? Like Queen Charmin, don't let me go on. Don't let me go on. What the knowledge out here? Miss Nancy, you're listening. Thanks for sharing it. Thank you, Rachel and Miss Jodie. I sorry I missed your input. And the Queen is just strengthening what she's given us already. She's going on. I had to interrupt her now. Somebody's gonna let him get a chance. But knowledge, this free knowledge we get every Monday night for 3 hours on Fight Up Radio. Management, you stand. Rachel and don't be so quiet. Get involved. It is affecting us. Our kids need help. Let's bring them to the places where they can get it. It is out there. Go get it. Green.
Thank you so much, brother.
DJ Andrew, management, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
You know, DJ Andrew, Brother Earl said something that struck a chord with me. The kids need help. I can only speak for myself. When I needed help, I did things. I had behavioral issues. And I was screaming for help, but didn't know how to articulate it. And sometimes, because of the trauma and the things we're dealing with, and we don't feel good enough, and we don't feel worthwhile, you see the evidence of that in behaviors. And parents ignore those behaviors, and they sometimes that's one of the things they use to condemn and verbally abuse their children because of the behavioral manifestation of what is happening inside. So I just want to encourage parents to pay attention to behaviors. Behaviors are sometimes a cry for help. They are screaming, help me. But because you are so narcissistic, self-centered,
Stuck in your own ways.
Stuck in your own ways, as DJ Andrew said, or just plain you are covered in so many masks that you are wearing an armor that is heavy metal, and you're unable to feel anything that is going on outside of you. I like to talk in a lot of metaphors, because I do because I think that it gets my point across, and not everyone you might be a auditory learner, so everything that I say, you get it.
Right away.
but they are visual learners that might be listening. So when I make an analogy and give a reference, they are able to visualize and it impacts better. So, and then something that I'm learning, that you have to cater. On a talk show, it's a lot of talking. You have to cater for visual learners. It's like if you're in a training and everything that they're doing is verbal. That's only for auditory learners. It's not for visual learners. So that's why I give those analogies.
I'm glad you said it, Ms. Sharmin. Like, I have two sons, and as we drive in, they talk, ask them how the day, how their week was, and so on. And sometimes my big son, I can tell something is bothering him. And I said, is everything okay? He said, no. But I don't want to talk about it right now. And I said, okay. I said, whenever you're ready, I'm right here. Even when we get home and he started talking, the first thing I asked him, after he's finished, did you tell mom? He would say no. And then as we talk and so on, we correspond back and forth. And you can see the relief that he could sit down and he could talk to me. And like after he told me, there's like this glow of energy, like this darkness just left. And it comes back to what you just said. Like sometimes we just need to listen. Because a child has so much to say, you know.
The number here is 342-0510. Again, 718-342-0510. 718-342. I just got lost in the topic. I'm sorry. 718-342-0510. Again, 718. Let me put that up in the chat. 718-342-0510.
Talk time with Sharmin.
Calling you live. Welcome to Talk Time with Sharmin.
Yes, Sister Sharmin, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Adams. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. It's a pleasure to join the show, to listen to all the commentary,
Yeah.
including the metaphors. You touched on a very, very important point tonight, in that you kind of have young people, or even adults who grow up with mental illnesses, unaware, untreated, get into a relationship, and then you have tragedy. It could end up one of many ways where they manifest that mental illness within the relationship. It can end up in violence. So I hear your cry, I hear your call for people who believe that they may be suffering from something. And even, we're each other's keepers. If you see friends and loved ones behaving in a certain way, the problem is, the challenge is how to bring that to their attention, to encourage them to seek help.
Can I respond to that?
Okay.
One of the things that I am so, first thing, thank you for calling and thank you for raising that.
You're welcome.
Because that, the relationship side, I'm not going to touch it because that needs to be a show by itself. And maybe you should come and be my co-host for us to talk about that. But one of the things that you said, how do you help a loved one or a friend to accept that they need help?
Yes, that's a very big challenge.
It is a challenge, and it's not something that can be done overnight.
absolutely not. Because one need to be associating with that person. You need to be able to build trust with that person to the point whereby you can say something to them in a manner in which they will not feel offended.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be very diplomatic in your interactions, your verbal communication. And it's from our environment, Guyanese environment, that is not very easily done. Because you know how it goes, why you crazy, how you going to do something like that? You know, when you start to relegate the person as opposed to saying, well, okay, yes, you know, tell me about this, and, you know, do you think that this was the best thing for you to do? Do you have any other options that you could have handled the situation a different way? So you kind of have more like a therapeutic session. You have to have the trust of that person. And the reason I say this is because of there's been a recent situation in the homeland where a gentleman said his spouse was unfaithful to him and he lost it, and that may have been the reason for the actions he took. Part of it comes back to, as a family, being able to sit down in the home and have a conversation, resolve the issues, okay, recognize that they're not right, and be able to have that discussion. You know, if that can be done, I think many of the problems we have as adults, we'll be able to resolve them. Many of the interactions that we are afraid to participate in, we're going to be afraid to find the right language in order to express our ideas and our views, and to be able to communicate even better with our friends and even our enemies.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I think otherwise your show is great. The big challenge is, how do you tell a loved one that there is an issue to which you need to seek help? I'll be there for you.
I think that because it's a loved one, let me back up a little. One of the things that once you identify that there is a problem and this person might need mental health intervention, you point out things like, oh, I noticed your mood shifted and it went from 0 to 60. Are you aware of that? No. Or the person might say, yes, because I had this situation with someone. And the person said, yes. I said, can you identify why? And the response was no. Are you aware when it happens? Sometimes. So it's having a dialogue in the midst of when you notice changes, or you can say, did you realize you just do that? And have a conversation. And every time you notice the differences, you have a conversation. Then eventually you can say to the person, you know what? Do you remember of these different things that I pointed out in the last month? What do you think of it?
A rational thinking person, and I say rational here, to be because may engage you, but sometimes you'll find another rational thinking person might say, wait, you're monitoring everything I do it? What's wrong with you?
No, baby. If it's a loved one, you'll say, no, baby, I'm not monitoring, but I just want to point it out to you.
You know.
And then you get an understanding of how the person view therapy.
Yes.
You know, you ask questions in the midst of the discussion about politics. You just throw in that so it would catch them off guard and say they might just respond matter-of-factly and you got your answer. So you know that when during the discussion how you're going to introduce whatever intervention.
Yes, but I mean for the ordinary person, the layman person, this strategy might be way over their head. They might not be able to, you know, engage in this kind of exchange and this kind of monitoring and analyzing, and you know, they might just say things.
But you can't say things that is going to trigger the person. You can't say things that would trigger that. You may be watching and you know that something is wrong with your husband, and you want to say something. You could be like, go to a therapist for you. And then tell your spouse, your husband, you know what, honey, I've been, you know, when I'm leaving, when I tell you I'll be home late on Fridays, I've been seeing a therapist because there's a lot that I needed to talk about. And you drop that. And then the next time you share something about therapy, about what happened, and then you invite him or her, the first time might be a no. But when they see the changes in you, they would agree. Like if you heard, I don't know, just like the example with Jody, when Jody said she went to get help for her. So that's a way to start it.
Absolutely. I mean, and what you're alluding to here is that you, the friend or the loved one or colleague, you have to devise a strategy in order to how to approach this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's not something that can be done ad hoc.
No.
Yeah. Because it can end badly if you just do it ad hoc.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was meant for the general listening public to say that you have to strategize, you have to think about this for a little while. Maybe, as you said, start with yourself and then invite the person along, have some discussions based on your observations, and you have to be observing them very keenly in order to identify changes. You know. But it could be challenging for some, but again, like we just pointed out there, to devise a strategy to engage them and get them into the therapeutic environment.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. A. And I think that's a very good topic for our show, where we can actually identify ways that the regular person that they can have this as a discussion and you know, not and without the psychological and all the other jargons and terms. So it's something for me to think about and maybe get an expert to come in our calling.
Well,
yeah.
there you go. I've done my piece for tonight.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
With that, Talk Time with Sharmin listeners and friends and viewers, I want to thank you for, it was 3 full hours. Did we have any musical interludes? Anyhow, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for your never-ending support, your commitment to the show. I want to thank my guests, Kathy and Jody. Kathy, I'm saying Kathy. Kathy is my friend in Canada. Nancy Verdin, and Jody Prouse, that's Prouse, and Nancy is Virden. You can go to Amazon to get their books. I know next week is Memorial Monday. Once I have a DJ, I already have 2 people. I'm looking at DJ Andrew because I want him to come in. You know, I have 2 guests that is lined up for next week. Interesting, and they're both similar. You know, I just want to let you know that, you know, for the next couple of weeks I'll be bringing on guests. So just to bring home what we've been discussing all along, and you'll see people that survive because they all are survivors in one way or the other. So next week we'll be here, myself and DJ Andrew. So until then, good night, be well, and be safe. Thank you.
Ever since you left me,